Hi, it's Martin here from the Accelerator team at Robson Ailey. I'm joined by Jack Spoor again, and this is episode 7 of our Business Stuff podcast. Today we're going to talk about pricing and why it's so important to get it right. So Jack, pricing, it's got to be right, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, to put it blunt, if you don't get your pricing right, you could end up going out of business.
Yeah, if you haven't got it right, you're out of business, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
So what are the common things that people get wrong then when pricing is at hand?
There's I don't know, it's almost like a balancing act. We're trying to find the right thing. I mean, it's always a good angle to be looking at what your competitors are doing, but not solely relying on it. So benchmarking is a good idea up until a point. But also a good exercise I like to use with clients, and something I'll be doing next week with I've got a session booked in with a client specifically about their pricing is, well, let's start from point one. You know, what do you actually want out of the business? You know, what do you need to take out of the business in order to live the lifestyle that you want to live? And then from there, it's working back in terms of, well, what are the margins I'm going to be making? And therefore, if you know that, then it's like, well, what do I actually need to turn over? And then it's a case of how many customers you've got, and you know, how are you going to break that down in terms of what you're going to charge them?
So yeah, there's loads to go straight at there. So benchmarking, it's worth remembering here that you can't just make your price up. Some products, some services have a market rate that would be really hard to break from.
Yeah.
So, you know, a phone handset might be, 300 quid. If you want to go in at $1,000, there's got to be a reason for that. Mm-hmm. So unless you're exceptional, you are driven by market forces largely, aren't you?
Yeah.
A lot of stuff is commoditized, for want of a better word. There is just a rate that people are comfortable paying. Unless you want, so if you've got to come in within that, or have a damn good reason to not be within that range, haven't you?
Yeah, it's this concept of value, which it's easier and it's difficult in some industries to display that. I think our industry, accountancy, it's very hard to demonstrate value for very basic compliance stuff like personal tax return.
Yeah.
We can't turn around and say we're going to charge you £3,000 for a tax return and be like, and then go, well, why?
And not expect complaints.
Yeah,
we're not doing that, by the
way. Yeah, so it'd be like, well, why? How are you justifying that £3,000 price tag? Well, we're going to put those numbers in the right boxes for you. Like,
yeah.
Well, so will the bloke down the road, and he's charging me 300 quid.
Yeah.
So I think I'm all right. Thank you very much.
So if you're restrained from your market that you're in to come in at a price, to some degree, you've then got to just make sure you can do it at that price and make money. Because it's pointless just saying, well, yeah, we'll match their price. Mm-hmm. If you can't deliver that service profitably for that price, you're in the wrong game, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you were saying before off camera where you're like, you have a lot of people come to you saying, I'm really busy, but I'm not making any money here. So what the heck's going on here?
I've got the activity, but no profit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what do you think it is then that is the main reason why people are so busy, but then just not making money? Is it just down to pricing, or is it they might have the right price, but they're not doing it efficiently?
Yeah, there's obviously two ways to look at it, and you know, it's looking at the basic economic supply and demand. Like, are you charging enough? But also looking internally and going like, well, let's look at my processes here. Like blowing heck, why have I got 7 different people working on this job when it can only take 2 people to do it? Yeah. Why is it getting passed around between different departments?
Why if 7 people spent a day on it, it should be 2 people for half a day.
Exactly, yeah. So it's the basic side of that. Like, are you working as efficiently as you can? If so, then it's possibly that's when you start looking at your pricing and you go, well,
it's worth bearing in mind as well that there are certain things that, you know, everyone's heard the phrase apples and pears. You're comparing different things. You know, if you're trying to make a whistle, for instance, I don't know why that came to mind. Tesla sold whistles. They sold out $50 for a whistle. Mm-hmm. Can't get them now. Could have set the price at any rate, but that's a different whistle compared to like an imported one of 10 million off a press that came in on a cargo ship from China. Mm-hmm. You have to just sometimes accept that you might never get that price, and then that product is just not something you can do economically. Is that worth saying before we try and like just fix that problem? It might be a problem you just simply can't fix. You can't make whistles as cheap as China.
No.
I,
Yeah, you can't compete with.
that could
You know,
be a
with them.
T-shirt, couldn't it? You can't be, but you know what I mean. So you've got to first of all accept you might not be able to compete. In which case you shouldn't try if you simply can't. But let's just assume you're trying to compare against. You've got two apples. You're trying to sell the same product for the same price as your competitor, and you're relatively sure they're making money. What could be going wrong here then? Is it just down to efficiency then? I know you've kind of said that, but is that all it is? Or
there are other factors at play. I mean, you may be selling an apple, at the same price, and you're not making any money. They may not be making money as well. But I tell you what,
yeah,
because I'm selling those apples because I know once they see my apples, they're going to buy my pears from me though, and I'm making serious margins on my pears.
So the loss leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, then that's interesting. And also, yeah, they might just be buying work out of desperation. Don't compare to them because they could be wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And
these are both busy placing each other out of business.
Yeah, it comes back to that value, and I suppose a slightly different angle on that is what value do you attribute to yourself? I mean, it's the case of, are you just taking work for the sake of it, or do you actually go, well, hang on a second, let's draw a line in the sand here, and that's how much I think I'm worth. And if someone comes and says, I don't want to pay you that, I'm going to go, I'm sorry, I can't work for you.
Yeah. Because you don't want to be a busy fool, do you? It's got to be worth doing. One thing that people often get carried away on as well is discounting. So if you might have spent a long time coming up with the exact price, and let's say we're going to sell a day's worth of time at 300 quid. There might be 100 quid's worth of overheads and 100 quid's worth of wage. So on paper, that's 100 quid profit.
Yep.
If you get that day sold, yeah. And ignore, there's a lot of things to worry about before you get there, but let's just assume we've got 100 quid profit on a 300 quid job, and someone goes, can you do it for 225? It's worth remembering that if you knock 75 quid off, you don't automatically save 75 quid in your overheads and your costs, do you? You've just given away 75% of your profit. And I think people often forget that, don't they?
Yeah.
You have to work out the minimum viable price, and it isn't break even. It should be profit.
Yeah, and that's so much more difficult when you're selling a service where, there are ways of, perhaps making those savings when you're selling a product, because it'd be like, well, I usually sell 12 of those for that price, but maybe I can sell 9. Perhaps I can get away with the material costs I'm saving there because I'm only making 9.
That's why Mars bars are smaller now, isn't
it?
Yeah.
The Toblerone gaps are bigger. All of that nonsense.
Yeah, but that is because there's price pressure, so they've got to deliver a lesser service. So actually, that's a good point. Your customer might not want to pay 300. I can only pay 225. It's okay, but I can't give you £300 worth of services. Yeah. So people have got to be not afraid to say that. Or you have to just accept that you might be a busy fool that day. You might take on all that additional risk. You could still get sued. Just because you've made less money, you might still get sued and lose all of the money you had anyway. And you now didn't even get any profit to go against that risk.
Yeah, especially if you're providing kind of advice as part of that service. Like, you're not reducing your liability. You're still providing that advice. You're just providing it at a lower cost to your customer.
Yeah.
And they're still going to come back and sue you, regardless of how much they paid for it.
Yeah, of course, yeah. They don't care that they got a discount. They still want all of their money back if it's wrong, don't they?
Oh yeah.
Let's just start with the basics then, Jack, because people might be saying, well, how did I get here? How did I come up with those? Use this example of £100 worth of overheads or fixed costs, £100 worth of, I don't know what you call it in accountancy world, because I'm not an accountant, but marginal cost, let's just say, the cost of production, and you need 100 quid of profit. What kind of things would you put in your overheads? Because it seems to me like you'd start with, if you've got a factory, you've got to pay for that no matter how busy you are. You've got to pay your insurance. You've got to pay certain costs no matter how busy you are. That's the kind of stuff you should build in your overheads, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, the basic levels of that, you've got I suppose there's technically 3 different types of costs. You've got your fixed costs, which are the costs you're going to incur regardless of how much you produce. So yeah, that's your rent. Generally at your utilities and stuff like that, rates and stuff like that. And then you've got your variable costs, which generally increase as, alongside how productive you are and how much you're producing.
So if you're selling tables, if you sell more tables,
Yeah, so
you'll need to buy more wood.
Yeah, so that's a
You
pure
won't need a
variable.
bigger factory perhaps, but you'll need more wood.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of variable that you mean there?
Absolutely. And then you've got somewhere in between, which is kind of your semi-fixed or semi-variable costs, which can kind of sit somewhere in between the kind of step based on. So rent may be considered a semi-variable cost if you're in a space where you could rent more. So if you were renting a unit,
You get a big order in, you take a bit more space.
yeah. So then obviously your
You've got
costs
to build
go up,
that additional cost in.
but then that will stay level up until you need to go and buy another one.
What about overtime? So you might say, well, we can do so many jobs with our fixed wage cost, but then you've got to bear that in mind, I suppose, haven't you? If we've got a big order in, that's overtime. Overtime's time and a half.
Yeah.
So you might need to build that kind of thing in as well, mightn't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
And is that hard to do, do you think, for most businesses? Or are most of these things obviously one or the other?
Theoretically, you'd like to think it's black and white, but in reality it isn't. You know, when you're dealing with, particularly in production where you've got downtime and stuff like that, it's very hard to factor in. In an ideal world, you'd love to think everything's going to be 100% productive, you know, so it's easy, so we know what the costs are going to be. But there are going to be times where people are not going to be necessarily doing the jobs that they're meant to be doing.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be admin, there's going to be bits where they go off and check their phone, and
but it's also not skiving or but it's illness. It's the fact that people get holiday.
Yeah.
So if you say, well, I'm paying someone 200 quid a day or 100 quid a day, you pay them that every day of the year, whether they work or not, if they're an employee.
Yeah.
But they can only deliver the product or the service 260 days a year less holidays. You've still got to pay them for 260 working days, haven't you? So it's not just how much it costs them for that day. You've got to look at their wage costs for the year plus pensions, NI, benefits in kind, all of those things, and build those in as well, haven't you? It's not just, well, they get £15 an hour, so I need £15 an hour built into the cost, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Perhaps laboriously, but yeah.
In a roundabout way, that's basically what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really important as well to obviously think about that granular level. Is good on the cost side, but also on the income side. We've talked about income matrices loads in the past, where essentially you're trying to work back in terms of you set a target for the year. I want to turn over £200,000. What does that look like in terms of how many jobs do I need to do? What are my average fees? What does it affect? What sector of client I'm working for? And then in reality, if I want to grow my sales by 20%, what does that look like in terms of the number of new jobs I need to bring in? Is it 3? Is it 5?
Because all jobs are not equal as well, are they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most people deliver more than one service or more than one product. Everyone's got I wish I could do them all day long. They're the good jobs, they're the profitable, fast turnaround, quick payers. And then you've got that was a stinker and I priced that wrong. So again, this isn't just a flat thing where you say, well, everything you do has to be at a certain rate. It could depend on the type of work you're doing. The sector you're in might change the price, whether you're selling them in bulk rather than bespoke. There's a whole load of things that come in here, isn't there?
Yeah, wholesale against like B2C, stuff like that. And the idea of an income matrix also is to remove that intimidation behind like, hang on, I need to grow my sales by 100 grand. That's a big number. And you go, well, what does that look like? If you've got an average fee of a service line of £5,000, that's...
You need 25 grand websites.
I wish I'd gone with slightly easier numbers there. I'm glad you've got the mental arithmetic to add that up.
I was going to say 100 divided by 5 is like, we should be able to do that in our day
Take your
job.
words.
Let's make a note, James.
Carry that.
Jeff needs some... but yeah, so you then go, well, what is that? It's like, a site and a half a month. Well, can we physically find that? Where will it come from? What does it look like? But when we get it, or is that the right price as well? £5 grand's worth of money coming in. Well, if the web builder is paying £1 grand a week, I have no idea, but for ease, then they've only really got 2 weeks on that, haven't they? Because a couple of grand needs to go towards overheads, and that's £1 grand profit. So a £5 grand website might sound amazing, but it's got to be turned around in a couple of weeks, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Quite simply.
And I suppose another point, and it probably ties back with some of the other stuff we've talked about over the past couple of episodes, is you know, the idea of feeding back on this, when always looking back in terms of your pricing is so important. Like, let's go back in terms of the recoverability on a job. How much profit did you make? We didn't make any profit on that. Why didn't we?
Yeah,
and it's,
learn from the mistakes.
Learning from those mistakes.
Yeah. One of my favourite books I've ever read is a book called Black Box Thinking, which I'm sure I've probably mentioned. But it talks about this idea of having an open mind and a growth mindset where you don't have a blame culture. You know, if you're running a factory, and you know, I'll use a Jumanji cultural reference here. Someone leaves a trainer on a machine and it blows the machine up. You need to know what happened. Why were you down today? Why did we not make anything today?
Yeah.
You know, well, you need to have an open enough society, like workforce, where people can come forward and go, oh, actually that happened. It was my fault. It won't happen again because I know, and we all now know, and we've learned from it.
Yeah.
And the danger is that if you apply a ruthless target ruthlessly without allowing any slack and an open discussion, you'll never find out why it's not working, will you? Because people won't tell you.
Yeah, and they'll try and hide it.
They'll hide it and go, oh no, we never stopped all day, honestly, governor. So it's there's a lot of psychology about getting work out of people as well, isn't there?
And you know, I've spoken to lots of clients, you know, very successful clients, and they still get the odd job majorly wrong. You know, especially when you're dealing with big contracts where, you know, these could go on for 6, 12 months, and you just go, drop the ball on that one. But, you know, we'll learn for next time.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't kill you. As long as it's not the job that finishes you, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Didn't get involved with Carillion or anything like that.
There's an interesting... So let's assume then we're selling something that's fairly commoditized, but we think what we do is different. So I'm not saying we, but let's just say you're doing... You know, you're not just selling tables. This isn't a table you'll get from IKEA. This is a bespoke table made in a particular way. What are there any like good tips for things like objection handling and not getting that discount? Because if someone's asking for discount, that just means they haven't seen the value in what you're doing, isn't there?
Yeah, it's so important when you're dealing with, you know, quality products, is getting that value message across to people. So it's almost at a point where they're like, and I want this, and I don't care how much it costs, because it's that mint. I mean, that's where probably marketing comes in, and I'm probably the wrong person to be sitting here. We've probably got James on the other side of the camera who'd be better at talking about how to effectively market it. You know,
that may be episode 8.
I've just lost myself out of a job here, haven't
I? But it's true, isn't it? If someone turns up and says, "I really love what you do. I love everything about it. It's exactly what I need, but can it be cheaper?" Then actually they mustn't love everything you do, and it's not exactly what they need. No. Otherwise they wouldn't be asking for that discount, would they? And that comes back to the apples and pears comparison again. Don't sell, you know, IKEA priced bespoke tables. Bespoke is it's not a commodity. It's a different way of doing it, isn't it? So you've got to make sure your messaging's right, and then you should be able to get the price that you want for the work. You've also got to be careful not to think what you're doing is clever and bespoke when it's just what everyone else is doing. Because you'll struggle, you'll never get that value across if it is just the same as everyone else, won't you?
Another interesting point is actually, and it's probably slightly dated, but you know, we watching the news about the Salt Bay restaurant down in London. Yeah, Salt Bay, I'm over there. Selling the gold leaf.
There's your thumbnail for the video, James. Me and Jack doing Salt Bay impressions.
Yeah, but yeah, he was selling gold leaf, you know, steaks and stuff for ridiculous amounts of money, and the fact that he was selling that, and yeah, there was an expectation that he could charge that and get away with it, then meant that he was hiking prices up on everything, and you saw the receipts probably on, you know, various internet sites where he's charging 30 quid for a Red Bull or some nonsense like that, but he gets away with it.
If he was busy, if he was full, more fool the customer, right? But
exactly. So it just shows that if you can get that message right, like the sky's almost the limit.
Yeah. I mean, we're all over the place on topics here. I don't know what we're going to call this because we started on pricing. It's still kind of on topic. There's a great book I read. I can't remember the author. It might be on my shelf there, but I can't see. There's a book called Oversubscribed. It talks about this idea that you almost want to be oversubscribed. You want to be at capacity, but not above capacity. Capacity needs to pay well, and if you've then got a waiting list, you're oversubscribed. So you can then almost, if you've got 20 people desperate to get in, that's where this price hike comes in. You know, if all of a sudden Salt Bay's got 300 people who want to book for the evening, he's only got 100 covers, charge more. You don't want 300 people waiting to get in. You want 100 waiting to get in, and you want to get them all in at the exact price. That's the sweet spot, don't you?
Yeah.
And this book Oversubscribed talks really well about that. Don't just kind of like say yes to every job and we'll find a way to do it. Find the right job at the right price and be quite tough with it, you know. Don't, because there's a thing that often is mistaken here as well, and it's the impact on the person whose time it is you're selling. And I'm sure you've been here on jobs, Jack, and I've been here on jobs at Robson Laidlaw where you go, all right, I've got this job to do, quite a meaty project here. What's the budget? Oh, you've got 2 hours. Like, there's no way you can do that.
Yeah.
And you really resent the person who bumped you on that price, don't you?
Yeah, especially then if you actually go out to put the bill on, they go, well, why have you put all this time on?
So why has it took you 8 hours? Like, because that's what you sold them. You sold them 8 hours of time. You know, it's not my fault, kind of thing. So you've got to watch, because it's quite a. And it's easier to say this and think about it where it's not your own time you're giving away. But if you're selling someone else's service and you're just merrily discounting it to get the work in, that's quite a disheartening thing to say to someone. It's like, well, I don't value your time, and I think you can forget that when it is your own. So if you're a sole trader and you're discounting your own time, you probably don't realise it as much, because you haven't got someone who then, like, you haven't just sold someone else down the river. But that's why so many people are just so busy but not making any money. It's like, oh, well, fear of never getting another job again. It's like, well, get whatever price it is to get the job over the line, you know?
No, I think that's a good point. And particularly if you're going at that higher end, you're selling your service. You know, it's not necessarily just what they're actually after. It's the way that you speak to them, how you get back to them, that quality of customer care that you get throughout their time with you.
Yeah.
And suddenly, if you're busy doing loads of other stuff, then suddenly you're eroding the very thing that you've actually sold. And if you're not getting paid the price that you wanted, then nobody wins, really, do they?
No. It's actually it's funny, because you've said something quite good there. I was speaking to a chap yesterday, 2 chaps who run a business, who wanted to do the benchmarking exercise, and they wanted to get an idea of what other people would quote. So they had a job that he can do, but he decided to use that as an example to get prices off some competitors. I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure he said they'd asked 6 competitors to come and price for this job. And I'm sure they said only one of them turned up to price the job, and then he still hasn't actually got a price off him. So that to me sounds like, as long as he turns up and actually gives people a price, he's going to win work anyway, isn't he? So if you're in a sector that's notoriously bad, just be average. Average is good enough, you know. If everyone else is bad, average is the winner. There's a saying, isn't there, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, or something. So, you know, if you can just turn up, you're probably going to win it. You don't have to discount it. If you're doing something more than your competitors, you haven't got to then buy the work as well, have you? Because
yeah, absolutely. And there's I think of some other. We were in a really good session a couple of weeks ago with a guy who was doing some not in sales training, but just talking about sales, and it's just like the power of actually quoting in the room is so powerful as well.
Yeah,
you get to see the reaction of the person and whether their expectation is, and ultimately the people will say yes
or no, but it doesn't. You get an answer though normally.
Yeah, exactly. You get an answer there, and then you get their real reaction in real time of what they actually were expecting. Was it too high? Was it too low? But you know, you get your answer. Yeah. And generally, people will say yes more than they say no. It's
I've just had a session with someone on this, and what was interesting is, and I often refer to this, but the 10 hats video that you did, whenever it was, months ago now, if not a year ago.
Years, I think.
But the 10 hats is really important, because you've often got a technician who's trying to wear 9 other hats. They know how to build that website. They know how to fix the wall, make the table, do the tax return. what they're not is a sales trains person. They're not a trained salesperson. They're not a marketeer. They're not a finance person. They don't understand the budgets. But it's really important that if you're pricing a job, one of the most powerful things you can do is actually just take a minute out. I say a minute, half a day. You could solve your pricing in half a day and come up with a really good sales process, and then design a version 1 of rolling that out. And you'll probably find that every other job you win from then on is hopefully more profitable. And it won't take long for that to wash through. Your old contracts will wash out, the new ones will wash in, and you're just making more money. But it's really hard to remember to take that half a day just to do that, isn't it?
Yeah. And being ruthless with, especially if you're dealing with repeat customers, they're expecting a price off you and you're going, sorry, it's changed.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting as well, because we're talking about pricing here. Let's just assume everything's working. Let's not forget, your cost of your fuel is probably going up. If you're making fences after Storm Arwen, your wood's now twice the price because you can't get it.
Yeah.
Your pricing can never be a static thing, can it?
No,
your
absolutely.
national insurance cost or your social levy, whatever people prefer to call it, is going up. Minimum wage goes up, depending on your sector. That could have an impact. Your pricing, you've got to keep on it all the time, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Literally all the time, not now and again, not once a year. It's all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, the raw materials have just gone completely crazy at the moment, and it can change week by week almost. We're talking to clients that deal with stuff like copper, and it's just like unprecedented prices, and so that's always going to be reflected in the prices, and ultimately your customers know that. They're not.
Well, they're affected the same way, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It would be a bit harsh to expect someone who supplies a service to you to maintain their pricing while you're busy putting your pricing up because things have changed.
Yeah.
And I think people in business forget that. And you kind of go, well, that's just me selling me time. It's not, though. Your rent's probably gone up. Everything you do has gone up. Everything you buy in to sell on, all of the components, if you're reselling web hosting, everything's going all the time, isn't it? And I think I don't blame people for saying, well, I don't want to pay that. Can I have it cheaper? But let's not pretend it's their fault if you say yes, because that's human nature. Can I have it for less?
Shy Ben's getting out.
Because you should do that in business. You should also be ruthless on the purchasing. You should be. Part of your pricing should be, well, can we reduce the cost of doing the work? I'll go and ask for discounts everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's up to you whether you give a discount, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's completely in your control. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of people will see that as the cherry on the top. If you've got your sales pitch right and people want it, if they ask for a discount, and they say no, they might just still go away and go, "Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
It was worth it was worth asking."
Yeah. Okay then. Well, I hope that's been useful. I hope that has helped people. He's out. James is in for the next one. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, I hope that's been useful. Pricing, how to get it right. If you're struggling, if we haven't helped you at all, or everything we've said made sense, but you don't know where to begin, what can they do, Jack?
Well, they can get in touch either through the website, or just get in touch through your existing contacts at Robson Laidler, or just give us a call. We're happy. We don't bite, do we?
No, but don't forget, there's no discounts. We don't blame you for asking. There's no discounts. But joking aside, often, sitting for an hour, a couple of hours might be just the catalyst you need just to think, well, actually, got a couple of action points. I'll go away and work on them. And if that helps you become 20% more profitable, it's worth a few £100, isn't it? So there you go. That's the pitch at the end. But failing that, I hope you found something useful there. A couple of books just to pinpoint again. Black Box Thinking, really good about mistakes and how to have an open culture. And Oversubscribed. I can't remember the author, but we'll put them there. We'll tag them in the comments for you there. Hope they're of use.
Give James some more homework to do.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, episode 8 sounds like it's going to be on marketing to make sure you're attracting the right kind of customer. Until then.